Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for our ISO 50001 Energy Management Systems webinar. My name is Scott Jones. I'll be the presenter for today's webinar. I am the EHS Environmental Health and Safety Program Manager here at Perry Johnson. I work out of the headquarters here in Troy, Michigan. So today's session, we have a lot to cover. There's a lot of information that I want to discuss and go over regarding the specifics of the requirements of ISO 50001, and then also we'll touch on some of the certification requirements and some of the benefits of getting certified. Towards the end, hopefully we'll have about 10-15 minutes for questions and answers, and then I'll have some resources at the end that, with some links to some websites that hopefully will be helpful. So I am also a lead auditor for ISO 50001 along with ISO 14001, 18001, R2, RIOS, and e-Stewards. So the first poll, we'll start with a poll here. Where do you stand with ISO 50001? Just to kind of get a feel for what type of crowd we have here. If you have a ISO 50001 already established, if you're looking at implementing one, or if you're a consultant or an auditor. So we kind of get a feel for the attendees so I can gear any specific requirements towards your interest. So let me pull up the first poll here. So we'll take a few minutes or a few seconds to answer this, and then we'll proceed. All right. All right, let me close it out here. So it looks like we have about 50% consultants, 50% auditors. So this will be helpful. I'll gear a lot of the specifics towards what to look for when consulting or auditing. If we have anybody else on here that wasn't able to vote, any potential clients or any companies who are looking to get certified, I'll definitely still speak to some of the requirements for that as well. Okay, so what is ISO 50001? What is it all about? ISO 50001 truly revolves around energy performance, and this is pretty different from a lot of the other ISO standards. So with a lot of the standards, continual improvement is obviously at the forefront, but with ISO 50001, the key is energy performance and improving that energy performance. So energy performance is the measurable results related to energy efficiency, energy use, and energy consumption. And we'll get into what that means here in a little bit. So the standard for energy management was developed by ISO, the same organization that develops ISO 14001, ISO 9001. It stands for the International Organization for Standardization. So this standard, ISO 50001, was published on June 15th of 2011. So it's been out for just over 3 years now. And as many of you probably know, it hasn't fully taken off here in the States yet. It's much more popular overseas. I think over the next few years we'll definitely see an increase here in the States of companies getting certified though. So why consider ISO 50001 when ISO 14001 already exists? And this is a pretty key question and a question that I often receive from clients wanting to know what the benefits of getting 50001 are. A lot of people think that 14001 is sufficient in handling energy management, which 14001 can include some of the elements of 50001, but it doesn't truly cover the full scope that 50001 does. So ISO 50001 has been designed solely for the management of energy. In a lot of cases in 14001, energy management is overlooked, or only a certain aspect may be looked at, let's say lighting. That's usually one of the quickest ways to, and sometimes cheaper ways to reduce energy efficiency. But it doesn't fully understand all the energy sources, all the energy uses, and ways that money can be saved in a facility. So most companies do not truly understand how much energy they currently use and how much money they can potentially save by implementing an energy management system. It forces companies to establish baselines and identify areas for significant improvements in energy performance, and it encourages companies to look into renewable energy sources. So the purpose, again, of ISO 50001, it basically provides a framework for managing your energy performance. It doesn't tell you how to reduce your energy consumption or improve your energy performance, but it just sets the framework like all the ISO standards do for managing a system, and in this case for managing your energy. It provides a systematic approach to set and reach organizational energy use and consumption goals, provide organizations with management strategies to increase energy efficiency, reduce costs, and improve energy performance. Also, better manage their existing significant energy uses. So one of the big focuses for 50001 is to identify all your energy uses and then identify those that you determine as significant. Promote energy management best practices. Evaluate and prioritize the implementation of new energy efficient technologies, or OFIs, and then integrate an EnMS with other management systems. So this standard, ISO 50001, was designed so it can be easily integrated with standards such as ISO 14001. So if a company is already certified to ISO 14001, there really isn't a great deal more that they need to implement or establish to have ISO 50001. A lot of the procedures, the documents, they're already established for the most part. You may have to add a little bit to it just to make sure you incorporate all the 50001 requirements. But that template, the base of ISO 14001 exists, and therefore it's much easier to implement ISO 50001. Some of the benefits for 50001: realization of energy cost savings, reduce energy consumption, increase energy efficiency, increase energy performance, worldwide credibility for energy consciousness. If you're ISO 50001 certified, it shows the world that you are doing your best to reduce your energy consumption and improve your energy performance. It improves the ability to set baselines, measure, monitor, and report on energy performance. Especially for companies that need to report their energy consumptions and uses and their carbon footprint, having an ISO 50001 in place already sets that framework to make it easy to be able to create those reports for whatever agency that you're reporting to. So how does it work? ISO 50001, just like ISO 14001, follows the Plan, Do, Check, Act process for continual improvement, that PDCA model. So again, one key difference from the other management systems to ISO 50001 is that you have to show that you are continually improving your energy performance. So once you've established those baselines of what you typically consume for energy, or what your typical energy performance is, you need to show improvement year after year on that. Now, over a 3-year period, which is your certification cycle, you may show improvement throughout that cycle, but from year to year you may not. That's not necessarily a deal breaker. If, for example, let's say you're trying to achieve a 5% reduction, you achieve a 4% reduction. Well, why did you not achieve that 5%? What happened? As long as you're able to demonstrate and document why you didn't achieve it, that's fine. But generally over that 3-year cycle, you need to show that you have improved energy performance. So here's the EnMS, the Energy Management System model, which follows the PDCA. So you start with your energy policy, your energy planning, your implementation and operation, which is that do portion. And then you have your checking portion, which incorporates the monitoring, measurement, and analysis, your nonconformities, correction, corrective, and preventive actions, your internal audits. From that, any issues that are identified, you're going to basically evaluate your entire system. Those issues that go into your management review as inputs will have outputs to improve that process and go back into that planning, just like your ISO 14001. So one of the key differences with 50001 is the scope and boundary. So your scope for 50001 is the extent of activities, facilities, and decisions that the organization addresses through an EnMS, which can include several boundaries. So for your scope, you may choose to only address your electricity or your natural gas consumption. You can initially pick and choose what you want to include as part of your scope. You don't have to include your entire facility and all the energy uses within that facility. As long as you can meter the different energy uses or energy sources, that's fine. So if you have multiple buildings, you have one meter going to those buildings, unless you can meter those buildings separately, you have to include both those buildings. But if you have separate meters, you can then choose to only include one of those buildings. Or inside of a building, if you have natural gas going into the building and you have different processes and you only want to, let's say, start with one process, as long as you can meter that separately, you could potentially only include the one process in your scope of activities. Obviously, on your certificate that you receive, it's going to identify what is included in that certificate. But again, you have to be able to meter it separately so you can show that energy performance and that improvement of the energy performance. Now, your boundary is obviously different from your scope. Your boundaries are your physical or site limits. So maybe the four walls of a building. Within those four walls, that's your boundary. Or maybe your entire property if you have multiple facilities on a property. So you can pick and choose what your scope and boundary is, as long as you are able to meter it separately so that you can show the data for that specific building or process or whatever it may be. You could also potentially include multiple facilities throughout the country. It doesn't have to just be one geographic location. It could be multiple geographic locations. So here's our second poll. If 1 meter is used to monitor all natural gas usage, can a natural gas boiler system be excluded? So let me pull up the poll for this one. I'll take a few more seconds. Give it a couple more seconds. All right, close it out here. So it looks like 14% said yes and 86% said no. The correct answer is no. Unless you have a separate meter going to that natural gas boiler system, you can't exclude that. If you only have 1 meter to monitor all of your natural gas usage and consumption at a facility, you can't exclude certain parts of it unless you can show that it's metered separately and that you can basically exclude that data, that energy consumption that natural gas boiler system is consuming. Okay, here's another one. If a company has 3 buildings on their property, can they exclude one of the buildings from their EnMS? So we'll take a few more seconds and answer this one. So I apologize, I meant to mention this at the beginning. If you do have questions, again, we'll have a question and answer session at the end, but if you have questions, feel free to type them into the question box. I'll save them until the end so we can get through all of the content that we need to get through, and then at the end I'll address those questions. So To make sure you don't forget the questions, feel free to type them in, and then at the end I'll get to all the questions. All right, let's close this one out. So here, this one's a little bit closer. We had 60% that said yes and 40% that said no. I didn't really give you enough information to truly discern if it can be excluded or not, but if you have, for all of your, depending on your scope, you may include all of your energy uses, you may not, or your energy sources. Depending on what your scope includes and what your boundaries are. If you have 3 buildings on the property, let's go back to natural gas. If you have one natural gas line coming into the property, and you have 1 meter for that one natural gas line, and then that goes to all 3 buildings, you can't exclude those buildings if we're looking at natural gas. Again, it has to be metered separately so you can show true energy performance for the scope that you are looking at. Now, if you had the natural gas line coming in and a meter for each building, then yes, you could exclude one of the buildings, 2 of the buildings, whatever you wanted, as long as they are metered separately. All right, let me close the poll. Okay, so now we're getting into the key components of the standard and what the standard is really all about. So starting with that planning of the PDCA model, start with your legal requirements, your legal and other requirements, identifying those, identifying what your energy sources are. From there, you're going to identify your past, current, future energy use and consumption. That'll help you identify what your significant energy uses are. Once you determine what your significant energy uses are, or SEUs, you can determine some possible opportunities for improvement. Once you've identified some opportunities for improvement, you can determine what the baseline is for the normal conditions as they are currently. Come up with some energy performance indicators, how you're going to monitor that, the improvement from that baseline, and then you can come up with some objective targets and action plans. So that's kind of the process that you go through during the planning stage. The energy planning process, this is another look at what we just discussed. So you have your planning inputs. Your inputs include the past and present energy use, relevant variables affecting significant energy use such as weather, the performance, and that goes into your energy review. So you're going to take a look at all that information, analyze the energy use and consumption, identify your areas of significant energy use and consumption, and then identify opportunities for improving energy performance. From that energy review goes into your planning outputs. That's where you come up with your energy baseline, your energy performance indicators, objectives, targets, and action plans. So your energy review is a determination of energy performance leading to identification of opportunities for improvement. So the energy review needs to include, again, current energy sources, past and present, energy use and consumption, identification of your significant energy uses from facilities, equipment, systems, processes, and personnel that may affect your SEUs, come up with relevant variables affecting SEUs. Obviously, I mentioned weather. Depending on where you're located in the country and in the world, weather can have a significant impact. Obviously, in the summer, you may use less natural gas compared to the winter and the colder months. When you're using more natural gas for heating, and vice versa with electricity, you may use more electricity in the summer for cooling and less electricity in the winter when obviously you're going to be using more natural gas. So make sure that you are aware of all the relevant variables. So when you're establishing a baseline, you're not looking at a small section, let's say, of time, say 3 months. You need to look at the broader scheme of things. So making sure that you incorporate all the relevant variables. So you may have to look at a full year worth of data to determine your baseline. If you've had some unseasonable years, you may have to look at a larger, look at 5 years to determine what your baseline is. So make sure that you're taking all the relevant variables into account when determining this. Based on your past operations, current operations, and future operations, you may need to look at and estimate your future energy use and consumption. If you're going to be adding another process or another line, how will that affect your energy use and consumption? Or if you're going to be taking a line away, or if you're going to be adding a shift or adding employees, how will that affect your energy use and consumption? Identify and prioritize opportunities for improving energy performance. So identify opportunities for improvement through the following. So first, you obviously want to look at your significant energy uses. Those are going to create the biggest impact for being able to improve your energy performance. Identify those relevant variables, conduct those internal and external audits, and then employee communication. So when prioritizing improvement opportunities, some things to consider are costs involved versus payback. Obviously, some improvements that you could put in place may take 10 years to get your payback. Others may take a year. So you want to obviously take that into account and do what's going to be most beneficial for your company. Risk factors involved, and then your SEUs. So here's an example of evaluating energy performance for opportunities for improvement. So here we have an aluminum die casting facility, yearly energy costs, and some recommendations. So when you're establishing these opportunities for improvement, you want to identify them on here, identify how much it's going to cost to implement them, your annual savings, payback period. Obviously, this is a very simple spreadsheet. It can become much more complex, but this just gives you a general overview of kind of what you're going to want to look for and determining what OFIs you should put into place. So here we have the energy baseline, the basis for comparison of energy performance. This is your starting point. So let's say you're initially getting certified. You're going to have an energy baseline that was established. So for companies that are looking to get certified, it can be difficult to say, I want to get certified in 3 months when you haven't maintained any of the previous data to develop this energy baseline. So you need to have the data, the historical data, to be able to determine an appropriate baseline to show that you have implemented the opportunities for improvement and you can show the energy performance. So that really needs to be established prior to getting certified. So you're going to need some time before certification to develop and establish and implement an energy management system. All right, poll number 4, this is the last poll. Which of the following describe energy baselines? So I haven't really discussed this too much, but I want to get your input. A baseline cannot vary. It covers a representative time period chosen by the organization, measures energy performance, are developed only at the facility level. So let me pull up this poll real quick. So we'll take a few seconds to give everybody a chance to vote. Okay, looks like we've got a good number of people who have voted. So it's unanimous. Everybody agreed that it covers a representative time period chosen by the organization, and that's correct. It's up to the organization to choose the time period that the energy baseline will cover, but again, as auditors, when we go in there and audit, we need to make sure that that baseline is appropriate for the relevant variables, for the business, for the operations that are currently going, the future operations that they plan on, and past operations to make sure that the baselines are appropriate. Okay, so here's when we can recalculate the energy baseline. So if your energy performance indicators no longer reflect organizational energy use and consumption, if you have major changes to the process, operational patterns, or the EnMS, or according to predetermined methods. Again, for the major changes, if you're going to be adding another shift, obviously that's going to throw off the baseline. It's not going to be representative of what's currently going on. So you're going to need to periodically make sure that the baseline is appropriate. And you may say that every 3 years I'm going to reevaluate it and determine the energy baseline, or every 5 years, or every year. It's really up to you to determine what that period is going to be. So your energy performance indicators. This is a quantitative value or measure of energy performance. So it helps turn energy data into useful information for top management. It can be expressed as a simple metric, ratio, or a more complex model, such as BTU per widget or BTU per pound of paint. It's how you are going to demonstrate that you've improved your energy efficiency, energy consumption, and energy use. So now we get into the energy objectives and targets. So it's similar to your ISO 14001. You're going to come up with your energy objective, your specified result set to meet the organization's energy policy related to improved energy performance. This is more of an overall goal that you want to achieve. Your energy target is more specific for that objective. So it's a detailed and quantifiable energy performance requirement related to the energy objective. Objectives and targets can apply to an entire organization or specific areas of function or functions. So here we'll take a look at some examples. So your objective may just be to reduce energy use. Obviously that's not measurable. You need to be more specific and have targets that you want to achieve. So reduce electricity use by 5% in 1999, reduce natural gas use by 15% in 1999, and it's up to you to determine what those targets are. Obviously you want them to be appropriate. You don't want them to be something that you can't achieve or something that's you can achieve in a month or two over a year. They should be challenging yet achievable. So your action plans. Once you've established your objectives and targets, you can then put that into an action plan. So basically it's just a way to document and show how you will achieve your objectives and targets. So the action plan needs to designate who's going to be responsible for the objective and target and specific functions for achieving that objective and target, the means and time frames by which the individual targets should be achieved, a statement of the method by which an improvement in energy performance shall be verified, and then a statement of the method of verifying results. So you need to make sure that on that action plan, at the end of that, you have a space to basically show what the results were for achieving or trying to achieve that objective and target, whether or not it was effective. So that's pretty much the whole P stage of the PDCA, that planning process. Now we get into the do, implementation and operation. So your action plans and other outputs of the planning process shall include the following. You need to make sure that employees are competent, that training is conducted, and that employees, visitors, they're aware of what your objectives and targets are, what your policy is all about. So if you have contractors or outside people coming on site or even your own employees, that they know what you are trying to achieve so they don't go against that. So your communication should be internal and external, documentation, requirements, you're going to have your scope and boundaries, energy policy, objectives and targets, action plans, required records, and other documentation. So by looking at this, it's really not that far outside of 14,001. A lot of companies are already implementing parts of ISO 50001. So to get certified to the full management system, it really may not take that much more. So other due portions of this are your operational control, the design. So if you have any design components that are going to go into determining, establishing how you will achieve your energy performance, and the procurement of energy, services, products, equipment, and energy. So the checking portion, very similar to your ISO 14001. To ensure an effective EnMS, you want to make sure that you're monitoring, measuring, and analyzing your system. Evaluation of compliance with legal and other requirements. Certain states, certain countries may have specific requirements geared towards energy. Making sure that you're conducting your internal audit, and then any nonconformities or potential OFIs or observations are getting put into that your nonconformance preventive action, corrective action process. So making sure that when you have a nonconformity that you're identifying what the immediate correction is, what the root cause is, and then either your corrective or preventive action. So finally, you have your management review, which is the ACT portion. It's the last portion of that PDCA model. So management reviews of the EnMS should be completed at planned intervals to ensure its continuing stability, adequacy, and effectiveness, and they should include input to management review and outputs from management review. So those inputs are going to be all those items from your checking process. The good, bad, and in between. So everything should go into that management review. During that management review, you're going to assess your system to see how effective it's been, identify areas for improvement, and then determine how best to meet those areas for improvement, what you need to do to improve that system, and put that back into that planning process. So that completes the whole PDCA cycle. So now we'll get into some of the more specifics, some of the definitions and terms that go along with ISO 50001. So your energy performance, obviously this is the key thing. This is what the standard's all about. Some measurable results related to energy efficiency, energy use, and energy consumption. So your EnPIs are used to determine changes in energy performance. Again, BTU per widget, BTU per pound of paint. It's how you are going to demonstrate that you've improved your energy performance. You need to have some quantifiable, measurable way to do this. So energy performance as it's related to energy efficiency, you're looking at the relationship between an output of performance, service, goods, or energy, and an input of energy. So examples may be equipment efficiency, the boiler system, the efficiency of the boiler, it could be efficiency of the lighting, process efficiency, conversion efficiency. It could be a number of different factors. Related to energy use, the manner or kind of application of energy. So specifically lighting, heating, cooling, what is using the energy? So examples of energy performance related to this could be implementing incandescent versus fluorescent light bulbs, blowers versus compressed air, electric versus gas heating. So there are specific energy uses and ways that you can improve your energy performance. And then lastly, energy performance as it's related to energy consumption, the amount of energy applied. So examples, 500 gallons of oil consumption, 15,000 kilowatt hours of electricity consumption. So how much energy is actually being consumed? So those are the three components that go into energy performance. And we want to look at all three of those to show improvement in your energy performance at your facility or for your scope, whether it may be your facility or a certain process or activity. We also want to look at system optimization, which includes component versus system efficiency, maintenance for system efficiency, system adjustments in response to changes in demands over time, and commissioning. So these are some examples of system optimization. Key characteristics of measuring energy performance, looking at your SEUs, or those significant energy uses, and other outputs of the energy review, those relevant variables, your EnPIs, the effectiveness of the action plans in achieving objectives and targets, and then evaluation of actual versus expected energy consumption. So last slide on the actual, just going over some of the benefits of certification, then we'll get into the certification process quickly, and then we'll open it up to some questions. So some intangible EnMS benefits include reduced energy costs, improved corporate image among regulators, customers, and the public, proof of social responsibility, improved employee morale. With a lot of focus throughout the U.S. and throughout the world on reducing energy, saving energy, a company that can display ISO 50001 can add a huge benefit, especially when going overseas and when working throughout the world, to show that they are being socially responsible. So many of you are probably familiar with the certification process for other standards. ISO 50001 follows the same process. So your initial certification process consists of two stages. You're going to have your stage 1 and your stage 2. The stage 1 audit is basically a document review of your management system. It's on-site. Auditor will come on site, review all the documentation, take a site tour of your facility to make sure that you are ready for the stage 2 audit. And this is the main intent of the stage 1, is just to make sure that you're ready to proceed with the main stage 2 audit, which focuses on the implementation of the documents that were reviewed during that stage 1. So stage 2 generally occurs 30 to 45 days after the stage 1. Any issues that were identified during the stage 1 will need to be addressed prior to the stage 2. That's why it's usually 30 to 45 days out. It gives you a little time to make sure that you have closed out any of those issues. Stage 2 will also be on site. Auditor will conduct a full system audit. They'll go through all the requirements of the standard and all the processes within the scope of your certification. Any nonconformities, whether it's minor or major, will need to be addressed prior to issuing of your certificate. If it's a major nonconformance, where it's more of a complete breakdown of a certain element of the standard or of your process, that generally requires some sort of revisit, and maybe on-site or off-site. Minor nonconformities, we generally just need the corrective action plan for that to close those out. So depending on how many nonconformities you have, that'll determine, and how long it takes you to close those out, that'll determine basically when you'll get your certificate. Once you have been certified, the certificate is good for 3 years. Following that initial certification audit, you'll have annual surveillance audits, or if you choose, you could have semi-annual surveillance audits, but these are partial system audits. We look at areas of previous concern or some of the key elements and components of the standard that we will look at every time. And then on that 3rd year, we'll have a recertification audit. We'll conduct a full system audit once again and reissue a certificate for another 3 years. Looks like we're good on time. We have about 20 minutes left. Just so everybody is aware, PGR, we're still seeking our ISO 50001 program launch candidate. Basically what this means is for us to be fully certified and accredited to offer ISO 50001, we need a candidate to go through the process with us. Basically we'll come on site and we'll get witnessed by ANAB who accredits us to ISO 50001. So for this company, this first company that comes on board, we'll offer a 50% discount with no travel costs. So we can work together to achieve this. If you are interested in achieving ISO 50001 or being this program launch candidate, please feel free to contact myself. I'll have my contact information here up at the end of the presentation. Also, if you are interested in auditing with us, whether it's for 50001 or other standards such as ISO 14001, R2, eStewards, anything like that, feel free to send me an email. We'll take a look at your information. Or if you're a consultant or just entrenched in the industry, and it would be great to have contacts throughout the industry, and we'd love to hear from you. I'll leave it on this slide for a minute. These are some good resources if you're looking at implementing ISO 50001. The top two are really informative. The second one, the Save Energy Now, has a lot of templates and documentation that'll help you get a system established. So I would recommend taking a look at these different websites. And this presentation will be available afterwards, so if you don't have to write these down, you can download it from our website here probably the next week or so and get this information up there. So now we'll open it up to some questions. I'll put my contact information up here if you have any questions. If I don't get to all the questions now, please send me an email or give me a call and I'll answer any questions that I can. So yes, first question, will I get a copy of the presentation? Yes, absolutely. If you want one sooner, if you need one today, feel free to send me an email and I'll send you a PDF copy of the presentation. Otherwise, the presentation will be available on the website with the audio as well. Next question, can you exclude an element of the standard in the scope like design not applicable? Excuse me. With ISO 50001, it's a little more challenging to exclude certain elements of the standard design. It's possible, but design is more in there in case, you know, if you're going to implement an opportunity for improvement and there's design aspects in what you want to do, you should consider the potential energy performance in that design. So generally it can't be excluded, but we could look at it on a case-by-case basis to determine that. To become a third-party lead auditor, what is prerequisite? You need to be ISO 50001 lead auditor as per 50003. A lot of it depends on your background and how much experience you have in energy management. You have to take the lead auditor course or pass the certified lead auditor exam, depending on how much experience you have. If you have specific questions, it's hard for me to be too specific. It's more on a case-by-case basis. So if you have questions about you becoming a third-party lead auditor, give me a call, send me an email. I'll take a look at your background and see what you would need to do to become a lead auditor. And lastly, why there are less clients in North America to date and how this will change going forward. It's difficult to say right now how this will change going forward. I would like to think that we'll see a pretty substantial increase in companies getting certified here in the United States. I mean, currently there's no requirement for companies to get certified at ISO 50001. A lot of the requirement is being driven by customers or companies wanting to have a good image and potentially helping them achieve additional business. As the market becomes more competitive and as energy becomes more of an issue, especially here in the United States, as we're kind of seeing throughout the news that people are becoming more aware of the energy issues in the United States and elsewhere in the world, we're seeing more of an interest of companies wanting to get certified. But really it's hard to say how well or how much it'll increase. Like I said before, there's certain reporting registries or certain customers that are requiring their clients to report their carbon footprint or report their energy use and consumption. That having an ISO 50001 system in place would tremendously streamline that reporting process. So there's different factors that will get companies to want to be certified to ISO 50001, but until there's truly some sort of presence here in the United States or a requirement for companies to get certified or a big push, it might not be for a year or two before we really see it take off, I would think. But again, that's just my opinion. So I don't see any other questions. If anybody else has any questions they'd like to ask, feel free to ask them. Again, if you have or if you'd rather ask them offline, feel free to email me. You have my email information up here. You have the phone number up here with my extension. I'll be more than happy to take any calls regarding just technical questions regarding the standard, or if you're interested in getting certified, any sales questions. So if that's it, if that's all the questions that we have, that's all I have for today. Thank everyone for attending, and hope that you will join us on future webinars. All right. Have a great day, everyone.